you're watching this video because you want some opinions or some thought on which Nitro Buggy to buy. First question you should ask yourself is if you want an RTR or a kit. So this video is going to focus more on the expensive side, which is the kit that you build yourself, supply all the components. The first buggy I want to talk about is the XRay XB8 2017 version. This is what Ty Tessman's driving. He used to drive for HB, but now he's an XRay. And the reason that's significant is because, to me, XRay was always extremely high quality on-road stuff. 10 scale on-road, 8 scale on-road, mostly electric. But they ventured into the 8 scale buggy relatively recently, and they hired Team Tessman. So Gordon, Ty Tessman, pretty much the top tier team, if not them, and then it's Ryan Mayfield, but I digress. That definitely indicates that they're trying to go somewhere with the platform. They're trying to do something with it. It's significant because the XRay platform, that's all I really have to say about it, is that it's relatively new. It's a pillow ball suspension design, and it's pretty much unproven it had it not been for Ty. So it's a pretty big business decision. On top of that, I would say the XRay, it's the quality and the materials is definitely there. There's no argument against that. It's definitely kind of hit and miss with durability. I wouldn't say it's not durable. I wouldn't say it's not. I wouldn't say it's extremely durable. I wouldn't say it's not durable. The platform is a little bit more. It's a little more difficult to maintain. It's a little more expensive to maintain. That's really about all I can say about the XRay kit. There's a lot going for it in the future, and there's a lot going for it now. It's relatively rare to see one at your track just because most people buy what they're already comfortable with and what they're familiar with. But overall, I think XRay is going in the right direction. They're definitely improving a lot. The pillow ball suspension definitely seems to be the way to go. Next up is the TLR car, the Team Losi Racing 8 4.0. It's basically just the 3.0 with a bunch of refinements, just like every other chassis out there. For $600, it's I almost want to say on the cheap side, but that's pretty much the entry-level price for a nice buggy these days. The main improvements they made over the 3.0 was that whole dog bone angle thing they talk about. The A 3.0 had a tendency to be rear drive biased. So they basically straightened out the angles and allowed for it to be more of a 50-50 power distribution. Another thing they did is the shock towers. They kind of drilled holes in between the holes, gave you in between settings. I don't really find that useful for me. I mean, I had the A 3.0 and I still drive it every now and then, but it's not really something for me at my level. But the main thing is the engine being straightened out. There's a lot of refinements on bearings, a lot of boots, a lot of things to keep dust out and grease in. One of the biggest complaints for the 8 3.0 was the wear on the drivetrain, on the dog bones. So having little boots there really helps with the longevity of like the tips, and just generally the outdrives. There's a lot that can be said about the 8 platform. They changed all the little changes is too much. Like they added a brace on the radio tray, which really pretty much perfects the radio tray that they haven't changed in a long time. There's just an insane amount of refinements. If you have an 8 3.0, it may or may not be worth the upgrade, but in my mind it is, because you'd have basically a spare chassis with all the spare parts. A lot of it carries over, and a lot of it is just slight improvements, refinements. That's about all I have to say. I would really recommend the 8 platform. The only negative I have to mention is the fact that it uses metric and standard hardware. So if you have a hex driver set, you have to end up buying both sets, the metric and the standard or imperial. So that's kind of a downside, but overall it's still pretty beneficial. It's like a tank. Team associated, the RCA B3.1. In the last year, I think this kit has had moderate amount of success. I think it's been doing a lot better than it has been. A lot of improvements have been made. The year before that, Man, they've really been struggling. Team Associate has really been struggling with 8 scale. Spent a lot of time building a platform, and it just didn't really work out. The B3.1 should be better. Cavalieri won the Roar Nationals, I think it was, in Texas. So at least that shows something. They made a lot of refinements. They're kind of just working on getting all the bugs out. Some of the biggest features, or really the biggest one that springs off in my mind, is the high torque capacity differentials, I think is what they call them. Basically, they're just bigger diffs that hold more fluid. So that's nice in the long run if you're racing a lot. Another thing, I think they also use the 7075 T6 aluminum that the XRay uses, but they just use it in the chassis and maybe a few other places for weight and just overall just being a better kit, higher quality. I think they worked on the anti-roll bars and like the shocks and the shock bodies, shock caps, all these little things. They worked on their radio tray as well. But overall, I think everyone wants to see Associated do a lot better. They used to be really dominant for a long time. Now they kind of put all their attention into 10 scale. So if they can pour some of that love from their B6 and B6D into their 8 scale platform, then I think they're going to be really dominant. But at the moment, they got the drivers, but the car is not real all the way there, in my opinion. I know some people put in carbon fiber shock towers for a little more grip, but that's not something I would do. I'm kind of really paranoid about my shock towers. But overall, I think Associated will do pretty well. The Agama Racing, Agama, depending on how you say it. All I really know, to be honest, about this company is they make really good bashing vehicles, monster trucks, kind of E-Revo type of things. But the A215 SV comes in at $700, which is quite a bit for a brand people don't really recognize. The only kit more expensive is the Kyosho, which it's almost scary. But the kit itself, I mean, from what I understand, there's a cheaper version for $500, and it just doesn't have all the bells and whistles. This one comes with, I think, like 2 sets of wheels and tires, so that's a nice deal. I don't know if they're any good, but there's lots of little things that they've done. I guess the best way to describe them is that they're kind of up and coming. No one really knows about them in the legitimate, serious 8 scale buggy world. I think if it was like, they're kind of behind the curve, like I said, but if this was 5-6 years ago, then this kit would have been, everyone would have been talking about it. It would have been great. It would be very competitive, but the fact that the RC industry is moving so quickly, kind of middle of the road kit now is pretty bad, especially in a few years it's going to be really bad. But for the money, if you just kind of want to be different, there's a lot going on here. I wouldn't recommend it, but I definitely want to see them succeed. Next up is the HP Racing, the Hot Bodies buggy, the D18 or the D817, sorry. The TLR car is $600, the Associated car is $600. This one's $660, so it's kind of a little more expensive, but then again, $60 top of $600 isn't really too big of a jump. This car, Hot Bodies, Tide used to be with them for a long time. One of the best drivers of our time, or at the moment, really, or the recent moment, because he's kind of in a slump. But I digress. The Hot Bodies car is definitely a tank. I would definitely put it up with Team Losi and Tekno. Tekno is probably the most durable, but the Hot Bodies and the TLR car are probably butting heads for the second most durable car. They've done a lot of things with this. This is just about, give or take, all the little professional tweaks that professionals do. This is basically the car that won the Worlds, which is, if you don't know, is pretty much the biggest race for RC. It happens every 2 years. It's more than just the biggest race of the year. It's the biggest race every 2 years. So it's extremely significant winning the Roars, especially since it was in Las Vegas. The track was extremely rough. It was almost like in some places, if you were watching, it looked like they were driving downstairs. It's so bumpy and so blown out. A lot of things they did with this car. One of the things that stuck out to me is they're using the same 70-75 grade aluminum, so it's really good stuff. Everyone seems to be using that for their chassis. The stock out of the box gear ratio is 43-13, and I think I run 4813, so this is definitely geared for a little more acceleration. Of course, there's like one piece wing mount and all that other stuff. They've done the like lightened spur gear, lightened diff out drives, lightened aluminum axles. They even changed the stone filter clunk, I think, or I might be mistaken. I'm not sure. I can't remember. They also worked on their steering servo mount and that whole geometry and how that's optimized. So that means that they're really concerned about the driving. But I mean, it's a hot bodies car. It's really dominant. You can't really go wrong with this one. I highly recommend it. Like I said, Ty Tessman raced for them basically since he was like 13 or something, and just recently got off contract or whatever happened there. So it's definitely a significant player in the hobby. Now we move to the Kyosho, the MP9 TKI 4, the newest one, the newest Inferno. So this car being so late in order in this video should tell you one thing, and that's that there's no particular order for all these cars. Otherwise it would be first or at least second in my recommendation list. This is definitely like the Ferrari of the buggy world, even though it's Japanese. But for $730, it's the most expensive. It's the most expensive to maintain. The parts are extremely expensive relatively to everybody else. The level of engineering and refinement is just kind of a step or two above all the other buggies with this kit. You can buy it and comfortably be assured that you have, if you know what you're doing, you have the experience, which is really important. If you have the experience, then you can be the fastest guy on the track, for sure, wherever you are. But that's the key. It's expensive, so if you have the money, anybody can buy it. But if you're not experienced, it might not be beneficial to you. If you don't know how to break in an engine, something really simple like that, then you shouldn't be looking at this kit. You shouldn't really be looking at a kit, period. You should probably buy an RTR. This is not the kit to learn on. This is not the kit to practice for fun, I guess, unless you're just an enthusiast like most of us are. I mean, very few people actually do this for a living. It's all a hobby. So you can't go wrong with the newest Kyosho. I forgot his name, but the Japanese guy behind it, he's still working. He's still the same guy working on the same kit, refining it for like 14 years or whatever. It's the winningest platform in RC, hands down, pretty much. They updated a lot of little tiny things like the servo saver. They spent a lot of time doing that. They changed the geometry a little bit. The car, it kind of rotates more in a circular fashion, is what the guy said. They basically just reinforced, lightened, and changed the geometry a slight bit, and just overall refined the hell out of it. Now it's better than it's ever been, which has already been pretty much the best. Kyosho number one thing is the suspension. The shock package is the best, out far by none. Maybe Tekno was a little nicer because it's bigger, but in just performance and quality, their shocks are the best, and that's a major contributing factor to their success. So there you have it. I'm just going to wrap up the video now because it's a little longer than I would like. I don't think most people will watch this long, but I just want to quickly say the Tekno should be in here, the NB48.4. That's really new. They just came out with it. The NB48.3 is still for sale. Both of them are for the same price. Definitely competitive. The refinements are great. Tekno is really known for its just extreme durability. The suspension, the shocks are far bigger than everybody else, which makes sense to me because you might as well have super overkill shocks because these cars, proportionally, they're jumping ridiculous heights and distances. Some people are paranoid at that length, like me. The bigger shocks means bigger shock towers, and if you've been one of those, your day's over, pretty much. So there's that. The Tekno was basically built as an electric car from the ground up, so it's got more of that gearing to it, but that doesn't mean it's a bad nitro car. I just failed to put it in here for whatever reason. There's also the Serpent Cobra buggy, relatively unknown, kind of in the same boat as XRay. They just don't have one of the best teams in the world driving for them now. It's extremely high quality components, very well built. The value of the material that you're physically buying is better than everybody else, I think. The problem is it's just kind of unknown, kind of not a lot of support. It's in the same boat as XRay because both of them are new to Nitro Buggy off-road, but both of them have a large presence in on-road. So it's not like they're brand new companies. What was the other one? I mentioned the Agama. I think it's SWorkz is another buggy. I don't really care for the SWorkz. I hope they do well, but I don't know anything about it. It's also a buggy that's for sale, reasonable price. So finally, to conclude, since the video is pretty long, for me personally, I'm probably going to buy an 8 4.0. And the reason that is because I already have the 8 3.0, and I like the setup, I like the chassis, I like the design. The main problem with it for me was the wear on the drivetrain, on the dog bones and the off drives, and with the boots that's pretty much solved. The rear drive wasn't really an issue for me, the rear drive bias. But that's just my personal decision. If had I not had an 8 3.0 and I was starting completely fresh, I probably would have went with the Tekno or the Kyosho, or maybe even the hot bodies. But really my top three is the Kyosho, Tekno, and Losi. If you have the money, but more importantly, if you have more experience than money, then buy the Kyosho. So anyway, thanks for watching. Comment me anything you want. I'll try to get back to you with the best of my ability, and have a great day.